Last take, action.
All right, so we're back for the last chapter. So, so the blue bathrobe man has chased us out of our house, and we're now sneaking into Hannah's bower, and the golden gate has appeared. And somebody named Lion Kitty put both paws on that gate and pushed it wide open. See what happens. Chapter 8: The Congress of Marmots. On the other side of the gate, Hannah stretched herself upright. This was her harewood, and yet not. The trees were not tagged with graffiti. Blackberry brambles did not smother the undergrowth. Though she could still hear the midnight storm, in this narrow part of the woods, dim sunlight streamed through the branches to dance on the ferns on either side of the narrow path, almost like fairy light. Hannah scooted out of Cam's way and saw Lion Kitty waiting at the bend in the path. Snowy sat regally beside him. Mom finally pushed through the gate, then pulled it closed behind her. They all watched for just a moment to make sure it didn't disappear. It didn't. Hannah lifted a handful of threads from her mom's badly torn jacket. Her mom smiled. "At least it's not pieces of me," she said with a grim chuckle. She nodded toward the path. "Your friends are leaving." Hannah spun around just in time to see Snowy bounding down the path with Lion Kitty right behind her. Hannah led the way after them. She wasn't sure how far they'd run in this other harewood, climbing over fallen trees and picking through scraggly undergrowth. But suddenly the cats came to a stop at a semicircle of trees that glowed in the fairy light. Hannah stopped watching her feet and looked up. Row after row of squirrels lined the 5 trees. She could hear the restless scratching of their claws as they repositioned themselves to watch her and her family. At their center, perched on a stump, 2 large squirrels stood, hands neatly folded on their little round bellies. One was as white as Snowy. The other was an earthy red, her head the color of granite. The cats bowed. Startled, Hannah looked back to her mother and brother, who looked just as surprised as she was. Quickly, she did a short bow herself. "Welcome, Hannah, Cameron, and Bridget Troyer," the red and gray squirrel said in a voice that came from her mouth, yet did not. The accent was strange and beautiful, and just a little bit familiar. Hi," Hannah answered since she was in front. "We of the Congress of Marmots greet you. We greet you and lament that Spinadimul has found you too soon. He has not forgotten his hatred of your people, but you have forgotten how to defend them. Most unfortunate. Terribly unfortunate." Talking squirrels. Hannah blinked twice. Cameron stepped up beside her. Their mother closed up the circle, taking each of them by the shoulder and pulling them against her. "Spinning mule?" Cam asked. Hannah cringed, knowing he wasn't even close. The white squirrel turned her head slowly toward him with her black-eyed stare. "The great sorcerer Spinadimul, he who can hide himself in the guise of a mule skeleton, he who cannot be killed by the cold metal of a blade. He knows his blood, his story. Do you?" Which story?" Mom asked cautiously, pulling Hannah and her brother in tighter. But Hannah knew which story. She repeated the lines that had been stuck in her head all night. Clang, 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 the sword against the golden gate. The treasure waits within. One treasure brings one heart true love. One treasure brings the world to end. In the storm beyond the fairy light, Hannah could still hear the school bell tolling. She watched the two squirrels on the stump. They did not reply. "But how is this our story?" she asked. "I only heard it for the first time tonight." The squirrels looked to each other. "They no longer observe the spin watch," the red-gray squirrel said mournfully. "They no longer tell the stories around the campfire." "And your father, he does not tell the stories?" the white squirrel asked, turning to Hannah. "Our dad is an engineer. He reads his books sometimes, but mostly he works on his computer and travels to other countries to teach other engineers," Cam replied. The trees, full of squirrels, became silent and still. "We dare not keep them in the between long enough for a full telling," murmured the red-gray squirrel. Then she straightened. "I will tell you what I can, what you must know. The rest you will have to discover for yourselves. In the days of copper and stone, there lived high up in the Dolomite Mountains a people called the Fanes." Hannah remembered the last line of the poem. "The queen brings one eternal hope. The Fanes will rise once more." She said it aloud, and the white squirrel nodded, continuing the story. "In the beginning, they were a peaceful people, protected by our great cousins, the marmots. Their last queen would marry a foreign prince to strengthen their kingdom and help ensure this peace." The red-gray squirrel put a delicate paw on the arm of the smaller squirrel. The white squirrel lowered her head, and the other, larger squirrel continued the story. "But the queen made a terrible mistake. She married a prince who was proud, greedy, and foolish. They had two daughters, Dolicilla and Luyanta. Luyanta went to live with the marmots to learn their peaceful ways, but Dolicilla stayed with her greedy father, who chose instead to ally himself with the king of the fire eagles. Through dwarf magic, she became an archer, the leader of his army, conquering kingdom after kingdom. Spinadimul had little difficulty gathering the king's enemies against the Fanes. He had even less trouble wooing the greedy king's heart with tales of the treasures of Arona, beyond the lost Golden Gate to that underground kingdom. Dolicilla could not hold off such a great force, not when betrayed by her father, the king, in exchange for the location of the Golden Gate. She fell in battle. Spinadimul reclaimed the Rayetta stone from her gleaming crown, and her people were forced to hide in the caves and the warrens of their former protectors, the marmots. The red-gray squirrel sounded so sad, so tired. Hannah's heart ached for her, but at the same time a chill shivered through her chest. Dolicilla fell in battle. Spinadimul had called her Dolicilla. There were so few of us left, but we negotiated peace. We could have been done with war. But then the traitor king's son, the Eagle Prince, returned, and his pride and his greed were as great as his father's. We were destroyed," the white squirrel finished. The red-gray squirrel drew herself up regally and leveled her black eyes directly at Hannah. The silver trumpets sounded year after year. The king of the fire eagles lit the bonfire in remembrance of the Fanes' great kingdom. On the appointed night each year, the queen and the Marmot princess sailed the lake, waiting for the son of the Ingle prince to return with Dolicilla's unfailing arrows and restore their people. He never came. And now the queen lies in rest at the bottom of the lake. She lies waiting until the promised time shall come, when she shall lead her people into a time of peace once more. As the red-gray squirrel queen finished speaking, one by one, the congress of marmots began slipping from the trees, from branch to branch or across the forest floor. At Hannah's feet, Lion Kitty and Snowy began to pace restlessly. "The time has come for you to return," the white squirrel princess said. "Spinadimule called me Dolicilla. What does that mean?" "You carry your people's blood in your veins, young Hannah. The fate of the kingdom depends on your courage, your wisdom, your heart." "But I'm just a kid." So was Dolicilla. The fairy light began to shimmer. A drop of rain hit Hannah's cheek. Both she and Cam looked up. "We'd better get out of here," Cam said, and Hannah knew he was right. "I don't understand. What are we supposed to do?" their mother asked the two remaining squirrels, even as she dragged Hannah and Cam in the direction Lion Kitty and Snowy led. The squirrels didn't answer. Hannah didn't remember returning through the Golden Gate or crawling through her bower, but she stood now with her brother and her mother at the entrance to her hideaway where the strange bed of red poppies had stood. In their place was black ash, like the remains of a fire that had burned nothing but the tangled flowers themselves. Hannah slipped her hands into the safety of her brother and her mother's larger ones. They watched together as the brilliant colors of morning cleared the storm clouds away. They had been gone longer than she thought. She had never seen such a huge display at sunrise. She knew this was the beginning of something even bigger. Her heart didn't know what to feel. Her mind didn't know what to think. Beside her, Cam kicked at a lump of ash. "It's like their magic was used up," he murmured. Then he turned his head to the side and grinned at Hannah. "Hey, Han, the magic is real." Hannah looked from his grin to her mother's weird expression and then back again. "Yeah," she said. "I guess it is." "That is so cool!" Cam exclaimed as he ran for the door. Laughing, she chased after him. "Don't you wear those ash-covered shoes into the house!" their mother shouted after them. But she was laughing too. The end, Book 1. Well, now you know that we live not very far from an airport. The Intel airport, primarily. But, yeah. So, the end of our adventure. I hope you have just as much fun with it as I have. And if you are inspired to find out exactly what Spinadimule and the Congress of Marmots have gotten Hannah and her family into, all the rest of the series is available on Amazon or from Perks of Art in downtown Hillsborough. So I hope you are excited to dig into the adventure, and thanks for spending some of your COVID hideaway time with me. And I'll wish you summer just full of excitement and imagination and magical adventures. So take care of yourself, and hopefully we can chat sometime soon. Take care. Bye-bye.